Welcome to Asian Digest on ATN. I'm your host, Sam and Dylan, and today on the show we're going to be talking about what to do if and when you're injured. Now, there's a lot of information out there. Actually, it can be quite confusing in figuring out the types of claims you can make, what you're entitled to, your rights, even how to get a claim started. And today on the show, we're going to help you hopefully answer all those questions. And to help us out, of course, we've got our expert here, Nainesh Kotak from Kotak Law. Well, great to have you back.
It's good to be back. Thank you, Evan, for having me on.
And I always enjoy seeing you when I'm not actually needing your services. So
that's true.
Knock on wood, still doing okay. But great to have you here. And you know what? I always think this is such an interesting topic because, like I was saying, there's a lot of information out there, right? Everyone is putting out, what to do, and it gets confusing because sometimes you think, what kind of claims can I make? Or you think you have a claim when you don't. So you're going to help us out today. So let's get right into it. So first of all, Kotak Law. So for our viewers that are not familiar, maybe talk a little bit about what is it you do?
Thank you. Well, we're a boutique personal injury law firm. When I say boutique, we're not one of the largest firms around. We're the right size, I would say. Right now, there's two of us as lawyers. We have 5 law clerks and support staff on top of that as well. All we do is personal injury law, and that involves car accident litigation, slip and fall claims, long-term disability litigation where people are denied benefits, short-term disability goes along with that, Canada Pension Plan Act claims, product liability. I've been doing this for a long time. I might not look it, but it's been since 1994. Wow. So we've got a lot of experience. Thank you. Yeah.
That's excellent. So talk us through, the type of claims that you're seeing that are coming in through your door, or even inquiries, because I know people can send you an email. So what are the most I don't want to say popular, the most frequent kind of claims you're getting?
Well, the most common claims, it's really a mix. Car accidents are predominant because of the type of so many motor vehicles on the road. And again, last time I spoke about that, there's 2 claims that go hand in hand with car accident injuries. The first is a no-fault claim for statutory accident benefits, and that will include income replacement benefits, medical rehabilitation, maybe a non-earner benefit. And then there are the at-fault claim, which is in legal terms called a tort, where you actually sue the party at fault and their insurer will defend them. And in those claims, you're seeking compensation for pain and suffering, for past and future income loss as well, in addition to future care. And there may be some family law act claims as well. So that's, we see a lot of car accident claims. But, it's 2014, and the type of winter we've had, there's a lot of ice and snow on the ground.
It's the worst winter we've had. So I'm imagining those calls must have, tripled.
They have. And apparently there was a shortage of salt. So we're seeing a lot of claims where people have fallen. And sometimes people don't know what to do. They say, okay, I've fallen. Can I sue? Can I not sue? So get legal advice. And now, not every slip and fall gives rise to litigation. You may fall in your own driveway, and you may be the owner of the property. So there may not be compensation there. But often there is. And slip and fall...
Actually, I'm going to stop you right there. That's actually interesting. So if you fall on your own property, you can actually get compensation?
No. Let's talk about that. Okay. If you are the owner or the occupier of your own property.
Yeah, and your driveway, let's say.
And you haven't cleaned your driveway, and you fall, it's your responsibility. Who's the negligent? It's yourself. Now, maybe you contracted it out to somebody else to come and do it, and they didn't do it. There may be a valid claim at that point in time.
Okay.
But if the responsibility is on yourself, and you're the owner of the home, you might be out of luck in terms of getting compensation through litigation. Now, you might have disability policies at play where you could obtain income benefits from that, but in a direct lawsuit, you can't sue yourself. Yeah.
Okay, and so let's say somebody else is out and about, like you were saying, there's a shortage of salt. So let's say somebody, I always think of the mail carriers or the people that have to be outgoing and door to door. So if something happens to them, they slip. What are the things that they need to look at to figure out if they've got a claim or not?
Okay. To be compensated, to prove that you're entitled to compensation for a slip and fall, first you've got to establish what's called liability. Liability means that some other party is at fault. So you prove they're at fault. Once you've passed that hurdle, you need to establish what the value of your injuries are, and that means what are your damages. So to look at who to sue and who's responsible, we can look at the common law, and we can look at legislation. And we have legislation in Ontario called the Occupiers Liability Act. And it puts a burden on the occupier. The occupier could be the owner of a property or have physical control of it or be responsible for it. They have an affirmative duty to take steps to ensure or to reasonably inspect the premises and to ensure that it's safe. So if there's a breach of the Occupier's Liability Act, if the person who falls down can prove that the occupier did not perform up to a standard of reasonable care and that the injury was foreseeable, it was likely going to happen, that's their target. They've established liability on a party, the occupier. Now sometimes that occupier is not just the owner. For example, I'll give you an example. I mean, we brought up the driveway issue, or let's say the mailman is delivering, mailwoman, or what maybe is delivering mail in a mall. And they fall in a mall parking lot. Usually the mall will have a third-party contractor that they've paid in a contract to come out and salt and clean the snow, because it's a big task. You need professionals to do it. So it is a defense to the owner to say they had a reasonable system of inspection in place, that they hired a competent third party to take care of the snow and the ice. And that may be a defense for them. It may not be a defense for the third-party contractor. So one of the tasks that the lawyer has is to identify the potential parties who may be at fault. That someone may think, well, I fell in the mall, it's the mall's fault. But you have to go a little bit further. Who was responsible for cleaning? And you name both of them in the claim. And usually there's some sort of division of responsibility at that
makes
point in
sense.
time.
I think so. Perfect. Okay, so lots more to talk about, because this just gets so interesting when you get really into specifics. It's really case by case.
Right. So
I just feel like it's so interesting. We got to take a little commercial break, so folks, don't go anywhere. We've got lots more coming up right after this. Welcome back to Asian Digest on ATN. I'm your host, Damon Dillon. And of course, we're still chatting with the very talented Nainesh Kotak from Kotak Law. And it was very fascinating, you know, what you do. Now, we were just talking about the mall example. You know, we all go shopping. It's a regular occurrence for most people, right? And sometimes, you know, people have injuries. So, you know, we were talking a little bit about, you know, if you fall in, let's say, a mall parking lot, you might think it's the mall's responsibility, ownership, the management, but not necessarily, because you have to look at all the parties involved. That brings us down into the types of falls, right?
Right.
So maybe you can get into a little bit of that.
Sure. What we see is, you know, yes, if there's snow and ice, we're seeing slip and falls in parking lots can happen. But sometimes there are trip and falls where there's uneven pavement. The lighting is so bad, and there's obstructions in the way where people actually trip over.
Potholes? I was just thinking that the other day. The ground is
Potholes.
caving. So I was just thinking, if you're not paying attention, you could like really break your ankle.
You know, and again, you know, when you talk about the type of injuries that people get, slip and falls, they can be very, very horrific injuries. You have people with dislocated kneecaps. You have people with fractured tibia. You have people.
You can hit your head even. I know somebody that fell and actually hit the back of their head.
And head injuries.
Right?
So,
Like, can you imagine?
So it's important to be careful. You know, sometimes, and in fact, more often than not, in slip and fall cases, there's an allegation made against the person suing that they were what's called contributory negligent to the fall. They didn't wear the appropriate shoes in the winter. They didn't look where they were going. So it's not always a clear-cut 100% liability case on the party who didn't clean up, or the store that didn't clean up the milk. There is an onus on a person to sort of look where they're going as well, because if you don't, maybe you get some money, but it'll be reduced as a percentage of how contributory negligent you yourself are. Yeah.
Very interesting. Now, also, another type of, I feel like, claim, we will call it, is long-term disability.
Right.
So talk to us about that.
Right. Long-term disability insurance is really a great benefit, I think, to the overall population. We see really two types of long-term disability policies that lead to litigation. The first would be the employee who works, and part of their employment contract, they're given long-term disability insurance. And their rights and entitlement and responsibilities are all governed by that contract. And the second type sometimes we see is for professionals, where they're self-employed and they buy their own policy. Long-term disability insurance, the claim is based on having a disability as defined under the policy, and I'm going to talk about that as well. And the benefit usually is a percentage of the income earned. Maybe it's 60 to 70% of the income they were earning. Some benefits are taxable if the employer was paying the premium, and some are not if the employee was actually paying the premium. you find that people think, well, can I really make a long-term disability claim? I'm not injured in an accident, but you don't have to be. If you meet the test of disability in the policy, and it could be from a genetic condition, it could be arthritis, heart disease, cancer, or any type of ailment that stops one from working, they should go ahead and apply under their policy for short and long-term disability benefits. Often there are denials. Okay, and it's very frustrating, and people are very vulnerable because now they've been cut off, or they've been paid a bit and they've been cut off, or they're not paid at all, and they don't have a source of income. And I think people find it very burdensome to take care of it themselves. And this is where you need to go to a lawyer, because the lawyer's duty then is to interpret the terms of that contract. Usually the contract will provide a term how long the disability benefits are supposed to be paid. Usually it's till age 65, but sometimes it's shorter. And it defines what disability is. And people often find, well, I've been paid for 2 years, and now they're stopping my benefits. Why? Most policies have a definition of two definitions of disability, and they call it total disability. So for the first 2 years of being paid, usually the policy will state, is the person suffering a substantial inability to perform the essential tasks of their employment? But after 2 years, it looks at a total disability as a person totally disabled from performing any gainful occupation that they're suited to by way of education, training, or experience. And that is often a harder test to meet, because maybe there's a light duty job that the person who previously had a physical job could do. And this is where getting the appropriate medical evidence is necessary to help the case.
Very interesting. Maybe talk to us about the process, because like you were just saying, sometimes people don't realize they have a claim, or let's say long-term disability, you're just overwhelmed, I can imagine, with everything about taking care of yourself, that you don't even think. You think, oh, a lawyer's going to cost me so much money. If I don't have a claim, then I'm out money. But that's not necessarily true. So for people that just even want to get information and know what they're entitled to, or if they're even entitled to anything, how does your company help them? All
right, so we start with the premise that the person has actually applied for disability benefits, and either they've been denied or they've been paid money, and now it's been cut off. Very important to go to a lawyer right away, because there are often strict limitation periods on when you can sue, as set out in the policy document.
Is that for any type of claim, or is it just long-term disability?
Absolutely any claim.
Okay.
But most other claims, they're governed by strictly statute as well. The statute of limitation normally is for example, absent anything in the contract, would be 2 years. But sometimes the provision in the contract has something different, and then you have a battle which will apply the legislation or the contract, and you don't want to be in that type of debate. So it's better, as soon as the denial happens, go to a lawyer who's competent in this type of area of law. Have them interpret the contract. This is what we do. So the first thing I tell a person is, in our meeting, you come and see us, there's no charge, bring a copy of your denial and bring your policy, so I can look at the policy, find out what benefits they were actually entitled to, and look at the decision. Sometimes the decision is just simply miscommunication. So the insurance company says, we asked your doctor to give us notes and records, or a letter within 30 days, they didn't do it, therefore we're not paying. In that situation, you probably don't, I would suggest to the person, go tell your doctor to get that letter into them, and let's see what they say. But most often, the insurer has made their decision, and they're not necessarily medical experts either, the person making the decision as well. They make their decision that you do not meet the test of disability as defined under the policy. So what do we do? What do I do? The first thing I do is I get all the policy information from the client. I write to the insurer to ask for their disability claims file, because they document discussions, they document their analysis in the claims file. And I start the lawsuit quite quickly. Because you want to put, and I mean, I wouldn't want to give away my strategies, but sometimes I find that when you take that tough approach, you litigate quickly, then you can back off and negotiate later and help the person get a settlement. What if there's a likely outcome from the litigation? Sometimes they reinstate the benefit. They say, okay, we made a mistake, we're going to pay you. Often, though, they want to sever the relationship with that person who has the contract with them, usually the employee, and they'll come up with a lump sum settlement reflecting some sort of payment down the road and present valued. And often the employees like that too. They don't have to deal with the insurer anymore. They've got their lump sum payment and they can sort of move on with their life. Many people, I find, just seem to walk away. They're so fed up with the denials, they don't want to go to a lawyer, or they're really wondering, what should I do? And you know, that's very sad when that happens,
Yeah.
because it's almost like the David and Goliath situation. The insurance companies are, obviously they have more money, they're much more powerful. So I think
which can be quite intimidating, especially for newcomers or people that, you know, don't have information. So that's also what I want you to touch upon,
Right.
because I think those are some unique barriers that some of our viewers might be encountering, but we got to take a little break.
Okay.
So folks, don't go anywhere else. We're coming up right after this. Welcome back to Asian Digest on ATN. I'm your host, Damon Dillon. Still chatting with Nainesh Kotak from Kotak Law. Now, just before the commercial break, we were talking about, you know, why it's so important for people to come in and just even have a free consultation with you about
Right.
what's happened, if they have a claim, not just to walk away, because sometimes they're actually walking away from getting some compensation, which could really help out. That leads me into the whole thing of, you know, when there's newcomers or people that have language difficulties, you know, not only are you injured, but then you don't know the system or you don't know even how to communicate. So how does your company help those people out?
Right. You're absolutely right. It's a double-edged sword. Not only do you have reluctance on some people to complain or to seek compensation, you have people who simply don't understand the language or don't understand at all the process. Our firm, we speak a number of languages, and if we don't speak the language of the person who's coming, we will get an interpreter who does. So the language issue can be very quickly taken care of. People are vulnerable if they're hurt. They're vulnerable if they've been denied disability benefits. But it's very important not for them to walk away, because they're missing out on getting rehabilitation, they're missing out on getting better, and they're missing out on getting fairly compensated for what has happened to them. I think, you know, one thing that we need to talk about is what to do if a person is in an accident, what to do if you have a slip and fall. And our firm has an app for those who are tech savvy. It's the Kotak Injury Assistant, and it's particularly useful for car accidents. You pre-populate your data, and it goes through it, you know, after the accident happens, take picture, take witness statements, things like that. Obviously, most important is to take care of the person's physical health, get medical help right away, because sometimes injuries come on a little bit later, and you can have a fracture, you don't know. So get medical help. For slip and falls, particularly if it's ice, if the person is able to take a picture of the condition or have somebody else do so. Because what may happen, it may get cleaned up afterwards. And then it's a he said, she said about what the condition was like at the time of the fall. Car accidents. Often, by the time the police have arrived, some people have left the scene. So if you can take the name of the person or who saw it, do that as well. So those are sort of just little guide points to what to do in the event you're in a situation.
That's so important, because like you're saying, you don't want to be in a situation where it's, you know, your word versus someone else's. So I think the more evidence you have, the better for your case, correct?
Exactly, because the evidence goes to, as I said before, liability, proving someone's responsible. And once you've done that, yes, other evidence is needed to prove the damages, but that's more in using expert testimony, which we often arrange.
I always say take pictures for anything. Like I will take, you know, anything that happens, I will take photos. Like take a photo of the other person's license plate, or even of the driver, or anything, because you just never know. Like there's so many scenarios where people all of a sudden come back and be like, well, I wasn't even driving, somebody else took the car, or, you know, you know, like there's so many things, like why leave yourself up for any sort of, you know, argument from the other side. Just really make sure that you're, especially the witnesses, right?
Right.
So you want to make sure, because I just know people, they see it, they want to help, and then they go off on their way, and you think, if only I got their information.
And, you know, we have technology these days. Let's use it. Use it for your benefit if you can.
You can even, I saw on the app, you can voice record.
That's correct.
Wait, isn't that fantastic? So literally, you could have someone, if you're just, so, you know, I mean, we understand when you have an accident, everyone reacts differently. So sometimes you are overwhelmed, literally just pressing record and having that person verbally say everything they've saw, or their contact information. It's fantastic how you're using
helpful.
technology to help.
Yeah.
It really
well,
does.
We're there to help.
Yeah.
And as much as I can do for the community, I'll do.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So, you know, as we're wrapping up the show here, we've talked a little bit about claims and, you know, how you help. But the most important thing that you want viewers to really understand about the situation and about what they can do to help themselves and how you can help them.
Right. Well, obviously, first of all, take care. When you drive, take care. When you know it's snowy and icy out, wear the right boots, so you avoid these situations in the first place. And if it happens, we're there to help. As I said, we're easy to talk to. we're small enough so you're not a number when you come to our office that you just disappear after your first meeting.
Because like I was mentioning, it sounds like it's very case by case, that I'm sure you don't probably see two cases that are very similar.
You don't, honestly.
Yeah.
And every
that little element.
And every individual is different. And the philosophy of our firm is very open communication, respond to emails, respond to phone calls, have the one-on-one meetings whenever it's needed, whenever the person wants. So I think that's why that leads to success, is having that open communication with the lawyer and the client.
So in terms of getting in touch with you, because it is a free consultation, which I think is fantastic, because there's nothing to lose. If you even want to have some questions and come in and get some guidance, why not, right? The worst case scenario is that you'll say no, right?
Exactly.
So at least they tried it out. So how can people get in touch with you?
Right. Just keep in mind that we don't take money up front. We don't take retainers up front, and we generally reserve our billing until the end when we get a settlement. Our telephone number is 905-755-8900, and our website, kotaklaw.com. We do have a 1-800 number as well for those out of province or out of city. And visit our website. Come and visit us when you need. We'll love to help you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again for coming in. Always so much interesting information, right? I mean, these cases, it's always like almost detective work, I always find, right? You want to get all the facts, you want to piece the story together, and then, of course, help people out get what they deserve. So.
And that's the bottom line.
Excellent. Thank you again for coming in. And remember to check out their website for all the information or to get in touch for a free consultation. Thanks so much for tuning in. You've been watching Asian Digest on ATN, and I'm your host, Amin Dillon, signing off.